Radhika is a CSR consultant based in Pune, and she works for a company that is based out of Mumbai. And she's been in the CSR profession of consultancy for the last 4 or 5 years. And I hand over the mic to Radhika to introduce herself and the company and the work that she has done. Over to you, Radhika.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Good evening to all the Rotarians. It's so good to be connected with Rotarians because just to give a little background, I've been in the Rotary family for a very long time. I was Interact and Rotaract president in Kalyani Nagar. So I'm pretty familiar with the Rotary world. And it is the polio camps and other Rotary activities that actually got me into community development in the first place. So I pursued it. I studied economics and then I studied development. And I currently work with a consulting firm called Goodera, which manages CSR capital in India and across the globe. We manage CSR capital as well as help with monitoring and evaluation of projects, and also help with assessment and renewal of projects. So, yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay. So quickly, I think we can just start. CSR is something, I'm sure everybody is aware of, corporate social responsibility. I will just share my screen if you can give me access.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So generally, CSR, everyone knows that it is an an opportunity to get funding for clubs, for NGOs. But then there are like some very simple legal rules that you need to keep in mind. There are some obstructions sometimes. There are some basic things that we need to be aware of. So I've just put some things together. Just a second.
Yeah, I made you co-host so you can share.
Yeah. Okay, is everybody able to view my screen?
Yeah.
Please enlarge it.
Yeah. So I've just put together some things which give us a basic understanding of CSR and also of how to look at projects in the social space and what are the prerequisites to kind of look for CSR funding. So we'll start with basic things. If there's someone who's new to the concept of CSR, it is corporate social responsibility, and mostly it is about giving back to society. The idea is that as corporations, when we make huge turnovers, when we make profits, it is to in order to make a more sustainable and environment, we give back to society. So there are some, I will share this deck with you. There are some definitions according to organizations, but let's quickly move to the spectrum of CSR. So I just wanted to give a broad understanding of what companies are doing or what is the belief with which they do this giving back. So one which is also very well known is philanthropy, which is driven by leaders. They give, we have the Tatas, we have Azim Premji. These people are dedicated to community development. They have again and again given to corpuses and trusts of corpuses of NGOs and trusts to do good. This is not just for any kind of marketing or improving their image or anything. This is just giving without really asking for social return. The second is risk mitigation. There are companies that do CSR which is reactive. So for example, some companies like Coca-Cola or BP. So BP, if they have an oil spill, to kind of, or if they have like a major accident somewhere where somebody has, there are damages, to kind of improve or better their reputation. There are times that they would do projects for, say, truck drivers, or they would do projects for the environment. So So there is also like an aspect of risk mitigation that comes in. The third is strategic philanthropy, which is where you identify organizations that are in line with what you do, as in the same product space as your own business, and you but are NGOs, so you promote that. I'm just giving an idea of what different companies do, and then we will zero in on the legal bits. The fourth is responsible business. So this is something not many companies have gotten to, but will move to, I think, in the post-COVID scenario. Is your initial practices of production are sustainable in itself? So you might not be so dependent on that CSR spend to make the world more sustainable. In your initial business, production practices are sustainable itself. So that is something. And then strategic CSR. So when CSR becomes a part of the business, so basically Novartis has an entire venture. Novartis is one of the clients that I closely work with, and they have an entire social business which is improving awareness of diseases in remote parts all over the world. And then they also sell their products in those markets. But so their entire business venture is socially responsible. So that is strategic CSR. So this is just like a general spectrum. What we will move to now is India. So in India, I think the first thing that I would like to talk about is the applicability. So who will your donors be? Who will need to do CSR? So if there is any company which has a turnover of more than 1,000 crores, or net worth of more than 500 crores, or profit before tax they calculate, so profit more than 5 crores, then you are applicable to spend under the CSR law. So basically it is, I think this is something which is quite well known, is that by law you are supposed to spend 2% of the net profit, which is an average of the net profit of the last 3 years, that you are supposed to spend in that entire year. And by spend, it means it must be given. You cannot just budget for it and then not give that money. So actual spending of 2% is something that is required. However, till now there is no punishment that has come into force. There are talks about the board being held responsible if it has not been spent or anything, but as of now it's pretty relaxed. There is a minor fee of 20,000 rupees in case you have spent very less compared to what you're supposed to spend. So this is who will spend. Just a little time on what the law says. Before I start that, I just would like to say that if there's something that's technical or goes over the board, please stop me. I will go slower if that's something that everyone feels. But I want to quickly finish this because so then we can focus on what the process of a project is. So should I go ahead?
Yeah, Radhika, move on.
Okay. So what the law says is we for the company's part of it, we can probably do another session for members who are owners of companies separately. But today we are focusing on, as Rotary Club of Pune Far East, how can we be a beneficiary of the CSR fund. So I'll quickly say that 2% has to be spent. It has to be approved by the board. And there are a set of 11 activities which are permissible under the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. It specifies what will qualify and what will not qualify under CSR. So we'll spend some time on it. But what will not qualify for sure is contribution to political parties, activities that benefit the employees, activities that are in line with their normal course of business, and activities outside India. These will definitely not qualify. Let's look at what are the sections that qualify. Yeah. Just before that, who can the corporate, make the donation to? All CSR activity can be self-implemented. So it is not necessary that they have to give the money to an NGO. They can carry it out themselves. Secondly, they can collaborate with other corporates. And third, the category that the Rotary Club falls in is it can be either a registered trust, society, or a Section 8 company. And this has a set of regulatory documents with it. So this is the mode that we will be focusing on. And the Section 8 company or the trust or the society should have a minimum 3 years of experience. So I think this is something that we don't need to worry about as a club. Okay, so these are the 11 buckets in which any kind of project qualifies or disqualifies as CSR. And I will share this deck with you also. Why is this important? Is that as members in discussions, as BOD members, we do think of projects, we ideate, but in order to get funding as a CSR project, there are some buckets in which we should place. We should know from the beginning where it falls. So globally, there are SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals. Similarly, for India, these are the 11 points which qualify or disqualify as CSR, out of which I think 8 or 9 are applicable to us. I know for sure that there are projects related to hunger, poverty, malnutrition, healthcare, sanitation. So this sanitation is Swachh Bharat Kosh, which we don't need to worry about. Safe drinking water, I remember there was like a huge project that the club has only done. Education, gender equality, environment. I don't think we do sports, but rural development and slum area development. So I think these are roughly the same kind of focus areas that are looked into within the community development stream of Rotary. So they will fall somewhere, but we should know where to place it while we are, making the proposal, and we should try and push for projects which do directly fit into these buckets if we are looking at CSR funding. So I think this is an important thing to keep in mind, like what will qualify. Secondly, some points. So the limit for the admin expenses in a CSR project is 5%. So these are like some tips that we should know while we are making the project budget. If the admin cost is 10 or 15%, it is likely to get rejected. It is important that that the proposal for any project, it's not a one-time event, like a marathon or or any of the one-time activities that we do as a club cannot fall under CSR. It has to be an ongoing activity. So say if we do vocational trainings for a school, if we are doing these vocational trainings over the year, one training a month, that qualifies. But if we are doing, if we are pitching for just one entire day of training where we are getting kids from 10 different schools, that will not qualify. So it is important that when we look at a CSR project, we don't look at a one-time activity. And the way we design it, we should be sure that we should make sure that they are not designed for the employees of the company that is giving us the donation. So I think these are like some things that work, that don't work. Yeah, I think research projects, don't think we will be getting into it, but they do qualify as CSR. Okay, so this is the process flow for CSR projects. Something that whichever team that's looking into fundraising should immediately start doing right now is all donors who are doing CSR have a CSR page on their website where they publish their requests for proposals. So it's important for us, if we are going through this route of CSR to get funds, is to know which are the companies that are looking for proposals, and what are the focus areas they're looking at. So if we do a little bit of reverse engineering in terms of planning our projects, and not just planning our projects for this year, maybe, I mean, my advice or suggestion would be to plan long-term projects always. It's important to start doing this. It's important to say, okay, Tata Trusts is giving out grants to, in the education space. Novartis is giving in the healthcare space. IDFC First is giving in technology space, or in women empowerment space. So this helps us understand where the money is, because in the last 3 to 4 years that I've been in the sector, I can see that there is almost 20,000 crores of CSR capital every single year, and a lot doesn't get used because they are not able to find trustworthy partners. So there is so much money that can be tapped in, and within Rotary, with all the multiple schemes that you have, all the matching grants that you have, a lot of impact can be created. But for that, it is important to understand how the CSR ecosystem works, and that's why the first bit that you would start with is sourcing these requests for proposals of donors. So that's step number one. Then definitely they do give their guidelines as to what they would require in the proposal, what are the geographies they're okay with, etc., etc. If all of that fits in, the next step is to prepare a good proposal, and a good proposal will require us to know what we are proposing. So what is the need? Are we addressing the need of the community? What is our plan? It has to be a detailed plan with like a yearly or 2 year, a yearly plan for 1 or 2 years. And later on in this deck, I will also take you through how to plan for a project. So a detailed proposal is important, after which they evaluate, they carry out a due diligence of the club in terms of all the legal documentation. Then they will assign a budget. Then you will finalize all the indicators on which you will be reporting, and then you start the project initiation. And when you do the initiation, it is extremely important in CSR to constantly monitor and evaluate your program. So it can't be like we did something and then the donor will call you and ask you for a report, and that's when you send someone to find out what's happening. Because they need to, it depends on the donor, but they generally have quarterly reviews with their CSR committee and the board. So that's when they have to report on what's happening. So it's always recommended that you have monthly reports. And then once that is done, there's a conclusion report. Now, one thing that I have, so I also did my dissertation, for those who don't know this, on Rotary projects. And I have observed this across the globe, that there are a lot of projects that start in a year, they end in the year, or say early in the next precedence year. But that's it. Like, we are not looking at 10-year projects. We are not looking at 5-year projects. And in the social space, if you want to ever create long-term impact, like the longer the projects, the better. Like, there is an actual chance of saying that, yes, you made an impact. So it is important to design the project in such a way that for 2 to 3 years at least, you get a renewal grant, like a continuous grant for 3 years from the donor. So this is the entire process. Then again, it gets renewed. Then again, you go back to what the budget that has been allocated, and then you continue the project. So this is what most companies, all companies actually follow, because this is the way they need to take approvals from their board. But so this is something that's important. I think now we move to the logic model, which is something with or without CSR is super important in the social sector. So I've just given examples, but this is the model. It is inputs, activities, output, outcome, and impact. And while thinking about the smallest of the smallest projects, it is important to fit it into this metric. The reason this is so is, okay, let's take examples and we'll see. So one thing that I'm sure every Rotary Club ever has done is tree plantation. Now, for tree plantation, if you look at that as an example, what are the inputs that you need? You need the time of your members. So you need the human resources. You need funds to get the saplings. You probably need to identify an area where which needs trees. And yeah, you need to mobilize people. So you have your inputs, okay? You have your funds for it. Now, what are the activities that you need to do? You need to send out invitations to your members or people from other club to come and be there on that day. And on the day when they arrive, you need them to plow, you need them to sow the seeds, and you need them to finally water the plant. Now, till here we are good. Then what is the output? That day there are 100 trees that are planted. All of us feel very good about ourselves, and we feel that, okay, great. Then what happens? Our intended goal is that there is more oxygen in the area, the surroundings are green, we are helping with soil erosion if this is on a river bank, and we are leading to sustainable communities and better living. But what happens, and this is a study conducted by the UN, where it says that 88% of the world's tree plantation programs fail. They fail in the sense that only 20% of the trees survive in the best conditions, and which means that all the money that we put in, all the effort that we put in, all the activities that we did, till output it was great. Till output it was completely in our control, so we did it. That is also if everyone turns up. Sometimes we don't even achieve the outputs, but till output all programs are great. But when it comes to outcomes and impact, a lot of things are not in our hands. A lot of things are on, say for example, you planted a tree and just the next planted trees, and just the next day there's a flood and it all goes haywire. So there are things that are not in our control. So to plan a project that is successful, that is able to create impact in the future, it is important to identify each and everything that can come within these 5 broad headings. You need to have an extensive exercise of thinking that if you really, really want a project that all of Rotary International talks about for time to come, you don't need like 10 years to plan it. You need good 1 month to plan it. But then that's a legacy that stays, and that's something that you also are able to create an impact over time, of course. So even as presidents, as leaders, as BOD members, or as community development heads, it is important that you don't just look at short-term or immediate needs or immediate problems. Some things, you reap the fruits a little later, but then there's actual impact. So this is a logic model that we follow with each and every program. We check for this in each and every program of, when we do the due diligence and proposal evaluations. I think I must have evaluated at least 500 to 600 programs in the last 2-3 years. So I can say that if this is not there, it's a big red flag. So it's something that we should do in CSR programs. And I think these are some things, again, I think I must have covered during the presentation, but always think of long-term projects because donors also don't want to keep changing their NGOs or their partners every year. They also want to stick to something. And over time, there are donors now. In the last 6 years, things have evolved. And there are donors that are looking at impact and not just saying that there were 5,000 beneficiaries in our project. Now they've stopped, obsessing about it. Now they're looking at what is the long-term impact. So long-term projects, one good, it's a donor favorite. Second, beneficiary contribution in all projects. So any project you do for the most vulnerable of vulnerable communities, if we want their ownership, we have to get some kind of contribution, whether it is monetary, whether it is labor. It's extremely important to get their contribution. Third, this is something just with compliance. Get all your documents ready. If it's your 80G, your 12A registration, all the other, I'm sure like there's no issue with that when it comes to the club. But just have it ready so that due diligence happens faster. It always works. Fourth, which is needs assessment. In Rotary especially, something that I have observed throughout clubs is that all of us really want to do a lot of good. But when we try to put our solutions on some community which we don't understand completely, all those projects fail. So I remember when I was in Rotrack, my parent club, they did something that we all do, this toilet block donation and cycle donation and all that in villages. But what happened is with this toilet blocks, everything was installed, but there's no water. So again, the main purpose that you want to meet, you don't meet it. So it is important for you to understand, okay, even if there's water, I've seen so many cases where the communities are not culturally okay with using or with defecating in a bathroom. Maybe they are not just culturally wired to do it. So I'm not saying that I stand for, as in like I promote open defecation, but it is absolutely important to have a community's buy-in in your solution or in your understanding of the problem. So this is one. Every project, so this is something that we recommend for all projects, is that even if it is a really huge community development project, if it is planned well, within 3 to 4 years, it should be handed over to the community. It should be handed over to the panchayat. It should be handed over to, group of people that you form over 3-4 years. But it cannot always be dependent on Rotary Club of Pune Far East. It has to take ownership of that project. So that's one thing. And something that I already mentioned, which is there should be prompt monitoring and evaluation. There should be monthly updates to the donors. They love it. It's always better that way. They can give their inputs. Chances of renewal are much better. So we should always keep that in mind, even while we are budgeting, that okay, we might need someone to go more often. It's okay if it's like another 20 to 30,000 cost for a person who monitors and evaluates, but it's something that should be in the proposal. So I think my very, very long monologue is over, and thank you very much for patiently listening. Please, your questions or any comments.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of the points. So if we have any questions, can we just raise our hands? Hold on, I'll just to the participants. Yeah, so if we just raise our hands, then so unmute ourselves, or I will unmute you, and we can take it from there. Ramnath is. Ramnath, go ahead.
Yeah, Radhika, very nice presentation. My question is, you initially classified CSR projects into 5 different types.
Right.
Yeah, as far as I can understand, I understand that philanthropy type, but what are the other types of CSR projects, and can you give some examples of each?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just go back to it. So this is these are actually not types of projects, but this is the philosophy that goes behind giving in general. So corporate giving, if I'd like to rephrase that. But I'll tell you, for example, what Tara Trust or the Rockefellers do. So what they do is they fund other NGOs for their complete working. So they cover admin costs, they cover so for example, there is an organization we work with called CineCell, which works only for tribal households. So they completely fund tribal households. And as you know, like Tata Trust gets funded from the profit that is of all the Tata Group companies. So all the CSR as in part of the CSR of all Tata Group companies does go to the trust, and all its other ways of other donations. But this is philanthropy where you are not bound to do it, but you are going to do it with or without the law. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it might be like justified as CSR also, but things like Azim Premji Foundation or Tata Trust, they do way more than they're supposed to do. So that's one bucket. The second is risk mitigation. I did give an example, but I can give another one. So Coca-Cola, what it does, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all these beverage companies, wherever their production plants are, they use a lot of the groundwater resources of that area. And because of that, like, there is a lot of agitation of the communities, because in Sri Perumbudur also, their water quality was, depleting. The quantity was also depleting, and communities were not happy having Coca-Cola there. So what Coca-Cola did is that they designed a program where they would improve, agricultural practices. They would improve, water usage to make sure that there is enough water for these communities. They invested in, they did a lot of research. They worked with WaterAid, and they got water for these communities. So the motivation of doing this CSR project is risk mitigation, and not just doing good for doing good. So that's the difference that I'd like to point out. Then there is strategic philanthropy. So what, say for example, here the Body Shop does is, Body Shop empowers, say for example, they have in Australia, what they do is, or even in India, they haven't done it yet, but in Australia what they do is, Adani was going to get the coal, as in buy off the coal fields, and they invested in NGOs that were saying that we want to be, we don't want it, and we are against exploitation. So then they make an entire campaign around no exploitation, or preserving like natural resources, or not giving it to somebody else, or against industrialization. And they have an entire motto like that, which they promote through each and every project. So that's the case of Body Shop. With Apple, Walmart, so what Apple, what they do is, they claim, or the way that they do good is, they say that we source our minerals from non-conflict areas. So the reason why this entire debate between Samsung, Apple, and prices, etc., is that Apple is priced higher also because they don't exploit this is what they claim, but they don't exploit the people from whom they get the minerals. So it is from non-conflict areas. So this is where their inherent business or sourcing is sustainable in the first place. So these are multiple ways in which we can look at doing good, with the law, without the law, what philosophy you want to take as a company, as a donor. These are the multiple philosophies that I've come across and put together. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, there was one more, there were 5 of them, no? So I think you covered just 4. What is the 5th one?
Last one is strategic CSR. So strategic CSR is when, again, you make it a part of your business. So I gave you the example of Novartis. Novartis has an entire entity, like a company called Novartis Social Ventures, which is a for-profit venture, which is doing really well. They have a program called Healthy Families, which is across the globe, or Arogya Parivar in India. And what they do is they have employed about, so they are in 17,000 villages in India. And what they do is every month they have a Arogya educator who goes and tells them about all the communicable and non-communicable diseases. So they increase health awareness. And when they increase health awareness and they are aware that, okay, they might be having one of these diseases, what they say is you must go to a doctor. They don't really prescribe a doctor, but there are limitations of doctors in villages. And then the doctor prescribes a generic medicine, not a Novartis medicine, but a generic medicine. Now, what they're using here is that there isn't much medicine supply in all the villages. So they make sure that they have a good amount of Novartis medicine supply in all these villages, which is why it is a profitable model for them as well. Their sales go up, but at the same time, they are improving health outcomes in villages. So this is a part of their main business. So this is strategic CSR.
Okay. Yes. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Radhika.
That's covered the topic quite extensively. Any other questions, or can I go ahead with my question? Okay, Radhika, could you?
One moment, Jayesh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Radhika. I have a COPS meeting right now, so I am leaving just this meeting. Jayesh bhai, you carry on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Radhika. We'll see.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Radhika, can you just throw some light on the amounts that can be availed from these corporates from CSR? I mean, is there a lower limit and an upper limit, or?
Not really. Yeah, I will tell you. So there are projects that, small scale projects that start with like 15-20 lakhs, but then they go up to like these are yearly amounts that I'm talking about. So 15-20 lakhs per year to about 5 to 6 crores is something that is like per year. This is something that is common. It has to be like a very huge scaled project in terms of, say, a 5 to 6 crore program. For example, one of the projects we're doing with Novartis is to we are working in all the wards of Mumbai to now it's also moved with COVID, but for malaria and for diabetes, we are going to check each and every person for malaria, for diabetes, and for a period of 3 years, there's going to be health camps in each and every slum every month on reducing diabetes, how to do it, and so the projects of this scale, you would get corporate funding for 5 to 6 crores a year, but yeah, the range is around that. So 15 lakhs, I guess 15 lakhs is depends, because see, the least the least amount of fund that somebody would have to spend is 10 lakhs, I think. So so basically, if you make just 5 crores of net profit, then you will have that much money. So then there are like smaller projects as well, but that's the range.
Okay, now second question that leads to your answer is, what is the percentage of funding that these corporates will do? So if you're doing a project of, say, whatever X amount, do the corporates follow a guide as to they will fund 10, 15, 20% of it?
Most corporates would like to fund the whole project. So they don't want any other brand associated with it. In most cases, till now, there are hardly very, very few instances, I think only in areas of mental health and in areas of any technical kind of vocational services, that corporates have come together also to agree to another corporate, but generally they would like to fund 100%.
Okay, but if it was a NGO like, say, us Rotaries, clubs.
Yeah.
Would they mind co-branding of the project with Rotary, or would
No, I think that is fine. That won't be an issue, because Rotary Club of Jubilee Hills is one club that I'm working with right now. They are also doing this matching grant. I think I don't know which club, but then Novartis is funding them for like a part of the project. I think it's 40% or 50%. So I mean, if the funding is from the NGO side, which is like a parent of the NGO, then it shouldn't be a problem. But wherever there are foreign funds involved, it's very important to have FCRA registration, because that's something that a lot of companies look at as well.
right? Okay. Guys, any other questions?
I have one question.
Yes, Sujit, go ahead.
Do the corporates insist on contribution by the Rotary Fund, Rotary Trust, or do they give 100%?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Like you said that the benefit there should be contribution from the beneficiaries. So now beneficiaries are maybe downtrodden or something. So do they insist on contribution from the trust?
No. It is not I mean, none of the donors insist on it. It is just that ideally, if a project has to be sustainable without the intervention of the corporate or the Rotary, they would still like the impact of the program to go on. So it is not necessary that beneficiaries have to contribute monetarily, be with resources or time or anything else. It's not necessary. It's just a good to have in a especially in a community development project, because only then it kind of promises sustainability at some point.
Right. Any other questions? Are we fine? So can we let Radhika go on time?
Good.
Yeah. Thank you, Radhika. Lovely presentation. It's given us some more insight into CSR beyond just the form of CSR. At least for me, personally speaking. I think that presentation was quite educating, and I would recommend this presentation to be included in our next year's speakers list. Luckily, the chairperson and the president of that divisions are both here today. So, I'm sure they've taken note of it. And the insights that you gave, I was expecting it to be more technical, but they were very laymanish. And I'm sure the club members would benefit quite a lot from it. With that, thank you, Radhika. You can proceed towards your other activities.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's been great. I think this was just a snapshot. Just one thing, I hate putting text in PPTs, but because it was the law and it was something that I wanted to communicate, I had to. I absolutely hate text. I love pictures and only pictures. But I guess when we do, we could do another, hour of this in the coming year, and throw more light, more in terms of experiences and in terms of how people think, how do you actually get the money and things like that. So we can do like a continuation. But thank you so much. It was wonderful.
One question.
Yes, Sujit uncle.
Since now that company law amendment has come in 2019, that the CSR amount has to be spent within a specified period, or then it has to go to the specified fund. So do you think that easy availability of CSR?
Sorry?
Do you think that there's easy availability of CSR? Because of that guidelines now that you have to spend within 3 years all the accumulated CSR.
No, so that is firstly that is not something that is passed, because that is still, it's got a lot of pushback from the corporates and from us. We have written back to the MCA. It's something that is still under discussion. It's not it hasn't been passed yet.
But that would make availability easy, na?
That would, but the whole point is that you know what corporates are saying is that then you could just make it, you could just add to our tax. So why to name it CSR in that case? So that's the pushback from the corporates. But the thing is that if you can, something that they are saying is that as a corporate they have to spend. So even if they park the money with the NGO and the NGO implements it in the next year, that is still valid even now. So so I think I don't see it up. I mean, I don't think that it will get passed. Because corporates have a pathetic reaction to it. To be honest, we have only written all their appeals to the MCA. So because the thing is that the compulsion increases, which makes the projects just more and more compliant than any kind of social good. So as even though the chunk of the money will increase, but the outcomes will not be as good. So that's something that's not recommended. Yeah.
Hey, right. So we are right on time, Radhika. 7.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks for your
Yeah.
time.
Bye-bye.
And
Bye.
look forward to inviting you to the club for a much larger presentation with some videos and pictures of examples of your projects.
Sure. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.